Sorry, fiddling with cameras. It just feels like this is like a flashback. It feels like this. I remember Hungary. I was just very much a parent, a volunteer. Too much running around. There's just two or three of us, so we'll get there. All right, we're back on women's. This is New Zealand. This is Australia. So this is again the eventual final. So these teams really are just warming up for Friday's final. Score so far, anyone, Mr. Mixer? No score. This is excellent. And I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes gone perhaps. Camera's looking better, I hope. We're happy to take comments on Facebook. Someone might relay them to me. We're sitting now in our referee's call. Kiwis in white. This is not good. This is ref's timeout first of all, but they're talking about an actual penalty. I apologise. Black. Oh, 1. That is incredible. Australia 1-0. Fine start, Australia. And Australian teams do warm up. Unfortunately, unlike New Zealand, we have issues of travel, and so we don't get together much, our teams, and so really the comps are their warm-ups, and luckily we've got till Friday when the big game is. 2-on-1. Now this is always amazing. I don't know how good our cameras are, and I think we should all just look on this. 2-on-1. So the defender has to touch the wall all the way down until the attacker hits the puck, then she can break away. The problem always is that you've got 2 defenders attacking, and if they're onto it, they will push it wide. So for Australia, Caitlin is defending the 2-on-1, and we're off. And it's a goal. It's a goal by White. So that's a goal scored on penalty.
What's happening, right?
There's a goal. It's 1-1. All good. That's the boss. 1-1. We're back. Both people either way. Let's start again. We're off, I think, about 12 minutes to go. Strike 1 by New Zealand. Take it wide. No, the Australians immediately get it back and swing it very wide. A bit of a mess up there between the 2 Australians, misunderstanding, but they push it again. Australians holding the puck nicely now. Switching it right across again. That's a fantastic switch. Doesn't make many meters, but Kiwis round it back. Oh, the Kiwi support here, as always. Wonderful to see all those Kiwis on the deck. Parents and friends, I guess. And the teams are good too. I guess the Australians, they're all billeting, so they tend to go home in between the games as the games are spread out. We're running a 12-hour day here. So people tend to go home to their billets in between, whereas I guess the Kiwis hang around a bit and support their teams, which is always great to see. We're always impressed by the bags lined up. Play now in the Australian defensive half. Kiwis looking good. A lot of business on the top. Yes, and the goal. I apologise. I'm right off the money here. That was an Australian goal. And it was scored by number 13. Number 13 Australia, Caitlin, gets in again. So we saw her defend. Unfortunately, she didn't defend. Timeout now. Timeout. So 4 minutes going. 2-1 to Australia. Well, I'm excited. My daughter, this is her first time as a coach. She's coaching the Australian team. And whilst I often think these early games are really, as I said earlier, warm-ups. Always nice to do well, I think. Second half is when we really see how it's going to go. Refs talking to each other. There's some issue that they're concerned about, but a timeout, 15 seconds to go, so we'll go back to full screen. Oh, there's my darling wife blocking the view. That's marvellous, honey. So we're offline. Now we're offline, I suddenly realised. So what is happening? I apologise. Why are we offline? Ah, James, thank God someone's back who can commentate with a professional quality. It's been a constant apology now. Now something has happened down here, mate. You might be able to...
Are we still on?
Well...
Test? Yeah, you're still on live.
Okay, we're on live. Now I'm going to hand you to James, before maybe he wants his lunch first.
Yeah, you finish this.
Yeah, we'll take this half. Then I can actually go and sit in the pool deck and shout abuse at the Australian team. So certainly, here's a little bit of feedback I've had, James. I'm sure you haven't, but so I'm finding myself refs call. We've got a refs call chopping against Australia. Australia 2-1 up. We're in the Australian defensive half. But I must say, I'm just talking to my fellow commentator. I'm looking at the pool the whole time now, pretty much, and just reading out the refs' calls, and filling in the gaps. Right, off again. We've had a penalty so far, which Australia failed to defend, but they are still winning 2-1. He's pushing up on the near side wall. We've tried to encourage the refs not to sit in the corners, but we're still getting some great bum shots, James. We must get the names of the refs and then we can call them out.
Well, actually, maybe we should get them to print their names on the
Yes, names on the bum is a good idea, or we're going to put it to the chief referee. Nice run by the Kiwis. Pushing through. Right. Well, we're in a sort of centre position now. Good defending. Now we're by the Australian sub-bench. With the melee going on. We also had a little bit of a fiddle with the cameras, so I think we're happy with the centre one we're on now. This corner one could go a little bit right, a little bit up. I'm just making some notes because I'll get people at full time to fiddle with cameras. Ref's call. The ref is calling. What do we got? Against Australia. And the call is... I missed the call. Missed the call entirely. Right on the 3-metre line. Gloving. Defended well, coming across the far wall. Now we're back in front of the tray. Ref's tie, yes, the ref's called again against Australia. We're going to get a throw out. Gloving throw out. Now there's discussion with the refs. I think, yes, we got the thumb. I saw the thumb. That's a bit of a warning. It's a team warning for gloving. And the refs are good. They do explain this to the players. Off again. Everyone a bit caught out by that buzzer. They're all on the top. Yes, definitely that ref's got to go. We did move that camera back a bit. But Jack's theory is perhaps to move it right up forward, but I'm not sure whether that works either. Pushing down into the New Zealand defensive half. Some more feedback now. We've got a timeout called. Ref's timeout. Were we live or not? I did point it out to my assistant, but he was convinced we were live. Apologies if we weren't. Talking to space is always amusing. Alright, so for those of you who weren't listening before, we are Australia 2, New Zealand 1, 2 minutes to go, refs timeout. Australian captain having a word.
Ooh. Tough time.
It's half time. Well, that really does help. Might just take a breath there. Is James ready to go, or you just want me to take you through?
Yeah.
James is ready to go. Yeah, I have the banana, mate.
Not even live yet, aren't you? Yeah, no, you are. You're streaming. We do apologise for leaving the mic on before, but having no one commentating. Apparently that was bad form. Apparently, yes, we are live, says Queensland Underwater Hockey.
Thanks, Queensland Underwater Hockey.
For some reason, though, we're not live on our own screen. Anyway, that's another problem.
Yeah, certainly, James, what I've been doing is sometimes I just say mix it and have the score.
Yeah.
And he'll bang it out for you, because it's kind of like it's...
So,
Yeah.
you're going to get some dodgy background noise Underwater Hockey World. Keep an eye on this feed here, because that'll give you an idea if people are having issues with something. Plus, you can give shout-outs to people like Colin Heffer who start posting stuff. If you do leave it and you're going out,
We go back.
go back to Obsidian, or whatever it's called. If you can make Jack see. If Jack had a Windows computer, we wouldn't have this problem.
You're a
Better
bit more
that
forceful
one.
with the neck.
And just kill this.
See this one?
So you're good to go now.
Alright, everyone, we're just 30 seconds away from the start of the second half between the Australian under-22 team, women's team, and the New Zealand under-22 women's
Correct.
team. So far, the score
2-1 Australia.
is 2-1 to Australia. And the buzz is just counting down now. All the rest have their hands in the air. And they're kicking off the wall. Looks like New Zealand's going to get to the puck just a second ahead of Australia. They make good work of it, spilling it off to the right-hand side. New Zealand trying to rough it through the middle here. They found themselves a little bit of space, but Australia not willing to give them more than they've deserved. Pushing it off now over onto the right-hand wall. Looks like it's just going to be congested there for a couple of seconds. But they're trying to bring it off on a 45. Australia busting through the middle there, picked off by a New Zealand defender. Tries to go for a bit of a sprint, but the referees have called it. It looks like it's barging against the New Zealand team. All the players are a bit slow to get to their positions. Obviously had a very tiring first half. But they're all on the bottom now as the buzzer goes. And Australia kicks it off. Looks like they're going over to the right-hand side. Big flick over to presumably where the wing is. The New Zealanders have caught it up, but the Australians are maintaining their push. New Zealand now with the drive down that far side from the camera wall. New Zealand busting out into the middle. Big swim away from the New Zealanders. The Australians got it covered, but the New Zealander has support over the top. The flick goes over to number 20 to number 2 from New Zealand, but the Australian back's there to stop her curling around. Looks like a New Zealander there sitting down the wall with an Australian back just dangling off her. But it looks like they've managed to turn it around. Here come New Zealand now, aggressive 45. The Australian tries to curl it in, tries to bring it back into the middle, but there's many more New Zealanders there waiting. And it looks like it just goes shy of the goal tray. And the referees are calling it a goal. It looks like it must have gone in. I thought the Australians had successfully cleared it out, but it doesn't look like it. That's going to be that's going to be 2 for the white team, New Zealand, and 2 for the black team, Australia. Didn't quite get who scored that goal. It looks like the The Australian players are telling the ref it came off the glove, but they're not having any of it. That's definitely a confirmed goal for New Zealand, bringing the score to 2-2. And all the refs, hands in the air. Now we're ready to start off again. Here they go. New Zealand getting to the puck a bit earlier this time, flicks it straight through into the Australian defence. Charging through, they've taken it left this time. And we're back on the wall. Looks like New Zealand are being pushed back by Australia, but they find the flick back to their fullback. Fullback has room, switches it across. The halfback has it. Are they going to get the flick over? Looks like the flick's been chopped down. There's that number 2 New Zealander again. She really wants a piece of the puck. But the Australian defence just stopping at that. And now Australia are switching it back across to the far side wall. The flick goes through, but there's no support for the Australians. So the New Zealanders get possession again. A flick back, a bit wide of the New Zealand fullback, but she has plenty of time to go and get it. New Zealand now putting a bit of pressure onto the wall here. And it looks like they've just taken a bit of a breather. They're giving themselves some space. And is that Australia there trying to push through a pack of multiple New Zealanders? New Zealand takes it off it and back down the wall they go. Finds the person on the outside. Oh, someone, nice kick to the camera there. But the New Zealanders still look like they've got the majority of the control down that wall, holding it in the corner. Australia now pushing out very slowly. We'll see if they can find space or if they just want to keep it on that wall. Looks like it's coming across. Oh, it's New Zealand bringing it across, bringing it into the centre. Looks like that last Australian back will be able to keep it out for now. And back onto that far wall. The referee signalling advantage. We'll see who that's for in a minute. As the play's really congested there on that wall. Australia maybe inching it out a metre or two. The referee's waving his hand. And it's chopping against the New Zealand team. Australia's going to get a chance to break it out from their goal tray. Goes down Australia, just keeping it on that wall there, flicking it up the wall to their support. Not interested in bringing it out into the open, this close to their own goal tray. And it's gone well for them, a big break down the wall. Looks like the Kiwis have stripped it though, and they're bringing it over into the centre. The flick goes past. There we go, finally that wing getting a bit of the action. Another big flick over far right-hand side for the Kiwis. And the Australians are bottled up against the wall, but the New Zealanders have the numbers. And very good work from that Australian defender, holding onto that puck against multiple New Zealand players. She's just managed to take it to the wall, slow down the pace of play a bit, give her teammates time to get over there. Now we're just waiting to see who will manage to break this deadlock first. Looks like Australia managing to push out a couple of metres. They take it into the centre. The centre's looking for her players. Passes it to the wing, but the New Zealander just gets in underneath there, pushes it back. The Australian halfback picks it up and is driving on the 45, away from the cameras now. And it looks like the Australian halfback has got it. Takes it all the way that wall, curls back, looks for option in the middle. There we are. Australians in the middle of the pool now, trying to make themselves options. Looks like the left wing for the Australians has now made a bit of a break. Turned around by that New Zealand defender. And the New Zealanders straight back onto the offensive, swimming very aggressively on that 45. Australia rips it off with another curl, flicks it. Unfortunately, New Zealand chops it down. 2-on-1 now, but manages to get through. And the Australian just throws it away, doesn't want the puck. New Zealand now pushing down the right-hand wall. Don't make very far. Looks like the Australians managed to bottle it up there. Both teams are really looking to either push it down that wall or make a break. Looks like the puck's going sideways though, as the Australians look like they've switched it all the way around. Very closely tailed by the New Zealanders though. The New Zealanders are not going to let the Australians get any room with that switch. We'll see if now the court's a bit broken up, broken wide, whether the Australians or the New Zealanders can capitalise. But it looks like it's just going to get stuck on that wall for a bit. Here comes the 45 though. The New Zealanders shut down by the Australians, pushed back into the corner. New Zealanders have numbers. The last Australian back, not enough. Multiple New Zealanders push it into the goal. That's a goal for New Zealand. New Zealand lead 3-2 against Australia. with only 8 minutes left in this game. And the Australians are calling a timeout. I'm really sorry, everyone. I didn't see who scored that last goal. But yeah, the Australians have called a timeout. They obviously think they need a bit of a rest, a bit of a rethink of their strategy. They've had some good drives up the wall, but really when the New Zealanders break out, they look very deadly. Both teams doing a good job of looking for that space through the switches, but also an equally good job of shutting it down and not letting any ground be lost. So the puck's moving back and forth, but not forward and back on those switches. Good work from New Zealand, good work from Australia. New Zealand just really getting the numbers down on that 45 drive. New Zealand didn't feel the need to pull any players off their bench. They reckon they've got their game plan sorted. Australian players just going back to the sub bench now with 5 seconds left in the timeout, but for Australia. And we just wait for play to resume. There they go. We'll see who gets there first. Looks like Australia not interested in contesting that first. Really a leisurely dive to the bottom. Didn't really have the support either. The Kiwis take it right down the wall, and now it looks like they're going back. Looks like they're pulling the switch. The Australian wing, very aggressive there, and gets curled off. She leaves space for the Kiwis to keep going left, looking for a cheeky steal instead of just screening safely. Now the Kiwis have made a lot of room down this left-hand wall for themselves with that switch. Really good work by them. But Australia just bullying back up the wall. Seems very, very back and forth on this wall here. Here comes a potential drive, but it looks like Australia's going to be able to keep it out for now. And just everyone down in that corner. We'll see if the Kiwis want to commit to pushing it down that back wall, or whether they prefer to switch it around and take a more open attack at the goals with their numbers. Australia pushing right down that side wall. Very good work, but here the Kiwis have managed to get it off the wall. It's a good flick into the middle. She's got a lot of space, got options on the left, options on the right. Unfortunately, swims straight into the Australian defender who's able to roll her off. Australia now, the centre forward, taking the pass. Tries to find an option, but it doesn't look like she got there in time. Looks like the flick went to another Kiwi. Kiwis really doing a great rolling maul in the centre of this hockey court. Really keeping good possession on their bats, not letting the Australians swim it out of that deadly centre corridor. And everyone's down now, but the refs have called it's a gloving foul against New Zealand. That's a lucky break for the Australians. They really had a lot. There were a lot of New Zealanders in that centre corridor right in front of the Australian goal. New Zealand is going to set up again now here. A lot of players subbing. Obviously very tiring playing this high level. And here come the Australians now, pushing it out to our blue wall here. New Zealand coming all the way down. Will they be able to get around? Think they can. They take the flick. Shut down by the Australian defense. But is there a second woman down there behind her? Doesn't look like she'll need one. That's great defense there. I think that is... no, I don't know who that was, unfortunately. Another great drive here by the New Zealanders, though. It looks like they've been able to hold them out. Going in on the corner, of course, very hard to drive through all those bodies that will be able to get down in front of you. That's a good reason. That's why a lot of players like to bring it all the way around and attack the front of the goals. There's just a much wider face for you to attack, 2 meters instead of the 10 or so centimeters of the corner there if you're driving it down the wall. That's, of course, why the Australians always trying to push these drives out and push the New Zealanders out to their back wall. And this is a free puck against the Australians here. Everyone looks like they're down and ready, just waiting for the referees to get in position. Buzz is gone. New Zealand takes it. The Australian comes out to meet her. Flick in. Good work. They've got the puck into the centre. But the Australians managed to take possession, drive it out. That's good work by the Australians. Can't see any refs' hands in the air. Australians think they can drive it out the wall, but the New Zealanders strip it around. They're bringing it back right into the centre, into that aggressive centre corridor that they love. and the flick goes through, but the flick goes too far, goes straight to the Australian back who was waiting out there. And then the Australians, bit of a turn of speed, but the New Zealander was ready for it. Manages to shut her down, but she's got support, might be able to do a bit of a drive up this wing. And it looks like they will. That's a big drive, but stripped by the New Zealander again and just taken back out into that switch. Curled around into the middle, hit by the Australian. I'm not quite sure what's going on, unfortunately. It looks like the play's slowed again. Both teams trying to get a bit of possession. Yeah, and it's been driven out sort of on the backs of both New Zealander and Australian bats out towards that far wall. Both teams' players really hungry to get a bite of that puck. And it's all the way out on that wall now. A lot of players on the bottom. Good work by the New Zealanders. Looks like they've got a bit of a drive back out of their defense. We'll see if they try to take it off the wall again. New Zealand players down. Australian players really getting down to stop this now, though. And Australian looks like they've got possession again. Take it back to that wall. New Zealand, bit of a break here. No support, though. Has to curl. Looks like she's just taking it back onto the wall. And here we go. The outside shut down by the Australians. And the flick goes. Looks like the Australians got there first. We'll see if she can get around the New Zealander here. Doesn't look like she was able to. The buzzer's going, though. And that's chopping from New Zealand. Quite possibly that last New Zealand wing on the wide side there. Bit of a desperate attempt to stop that swim by the Australian. And the referees thought that was a bit too much. Unfortunately, a bit too much stick on the hand and arm of the Australian player. The Australians are taking it very wide switch and flick over to the right-hand side, but the New Zealanders have shut it down, and they're coming straight back through the middle. This could be really bad for the Australians. But it looks like the backs were there in time, and they've managed to contain it. Contain it all the way out to that side wall. New Zealand is back in attack here. And there's that wide player. Oh, constantly just falling a few centimeters short of a big bust. And there's the Australian team driving it back out. But it looks like the New Zealanders have got the switch around. Will they be able to get through that player? No, good backup by the Australian halfback. And it's pinned there underneath the Australian sub-bench. Lots of subs coming in. Australia find themselves a little bit of room. Look to take it to the centre, but they're right there. Curls back. She's got the second woman there. And that's good work bringing it into the centre there. Found herself lots of room. Looking for support. Can't find it. Has to take the flick into the centre. Looks like they're double teaming that New Zealand back there. Looks like they've double teamed right onto the wall, actually. Right onto the wall there. And then back, the New Zealand's come again. Flick chopped down, but the New Zealand centre gets it anyway. Big 45 swim. Curls around, reloads the New Zealand back. Not able to keep it off the Australians. A sneaky Australian forward getting in there and stealing off the New Zealand backs. And it looks like the New Zealanders still desperately trying to get that 45 drive on, and the Australians equally desperate to not let them have it. Just got to maintain possession and swim it out of there. New Zealand doing a really good job of getting on top of these wide breaks. Australia curls the flick through too. Oh, and she's still got it. That's good work. The Australian forward has to curl rather, and New Zealand double teaming. Look at those New Zealand numbers: 3 on the bottom and 2 more behind. But it looks like that is the ref's call, and that's at full time. Oh wow, doesn't time fly when you're watching hockey? That was full time. So the final score: 3 to the white New Zealand team, the under-22 women's team, and 2 to the black team, the Australian under-22 women's team. Good work, all of the girls. So the next game coming up: New Zealand under-18 women's diamond team against the Australian under-18 women's A team, and that'll be coming up in 6 minutes. And I'm just going to quickly go offline to reset the stream. Stick around, y'all. Hello. Hey everyone, we're back. in just a couple of seconds with the New Zealand under-18 women's diamond team in white against the Australian under-18 women's A team in black. The New Zealand team is coached by Natasha, and the Australian team coached by Chris.
And this is the other bit of info was. This player's not playing.
As the buzzer counts down, we're off for the first strike of the game. Here come the players. Looks like New Zealand's going to win it, and they do, just pushing straight through that first player. Oh no, my mistake. I got the thing wrong mixed up. Australia won the strike, but New Zealand taking the first offensive down this far near side wall where the camera is. We've just lost sight of them.